Since the toppling of President Ben Ali in January. The first results are expected on Monday, with Islamist party Ennahda poised to claim a lion's share of the vote. Let's cross live now to the Tunisian capital and speak with local journalist Sarah Mohammed Ali. Thanks very much indeed for being with us. I understand, I'm just reading at the moment, something like 70% of voters have turned out for these elections. Was that sort of number expected?
Well, according to the High Independent Elections Committee, they were actually optimistic that today they were expecting a high turnout. But when I went and interviewed local people in downtown Tunis before yesterday, they were actually kind of pessimistic because there was a lot of defamation and a lot of negative press online by bloggers and other activists who thought that the elections wouldn't actually, the turnout of the elections today or the polling stations would be very low. But actually, on the contrary, 70% is a great number, and I don't think the people here in Tunisia have ever been so happy. It is a celebration right now in the city.
You're a freelance journalist. Just how has the media affected the campaign running up to these elections?
Well, basically, the High Independent Committee for Elections, also known as the ISIE, which is actually co-chaired by Mr. Kamal Al-Jandoubi, who is actually the chair of the committee and the president at the same time, he actually stated in several press conferences this month that media restrictions were quite high. They were afraid that international media would intervene with regards to propaganda or basically publicizing or overly publicizing a particular political party. That's why every single journalist, international and local, has to accredit their paperwork if they were going to cover the voting stations or the voting polls today in Tunis and outside of Tunis as well in the rural areas. If you are caught overly basically reporting a political party, you will be fined. And I heard rumors, I don't know if I can actually, I don't have a specific source, but we heard rumors that not only will you pay a fine as a journalist, they will revoke you of your journalistic license. Well,
as we're talking, Sarah, we're seeing pictures of Tunisians going to the polls, casting their votes. But of course, they were faced with choosing from something like over 60 parties, thousands of candidates. Very confusing.
66.
Sorry, okay, 66. 66 parties. Now, that surely is pretty confusing for someone who's never actually voted before.
Indeed, people here were actually quite troubled. At the voting polls today that I witnessed myself, they were actually delaying their choice behind the booth because, you know, you're not allowed to accompany a Tunisian while they are casting their vote. But the local international journalists were filming outside of the voting booth, could tell that there was a lot of hesitation. People were asking the same questions again. I'm confused. I don't know. There's just too much information. So I do feel that there was a lot of information being digressed today, but I think people just went with their gut feeling and voted for the political party that just basically had the best economical plan in terms of business productivity and, of course, unemployment, which is a big issue here in Tunisia.
And that party at the moment seems to be the Islamist party Ennahda. That's been tipped as the favourite. Now, tell us, what do we know about this group? And if Islamists do come to power in Tunisia, what does that say for the future?
Well, basically, I've been covering a few features and stories with Ennahda. I wasn't allowed as a journalist accredited by the High Independent Committee for Elections to interview the head or leader of Ennahda group, which is also Mr. Rashid Ghannouchi, or actually even interview political candidates, because that would be a violation of the journalistic code set by the committee. But what I could gather from logistic members, other voters, from what I understood even from the brochures and leaflets that I read, that they do have a concise plan, which is a long-term plan, which I believe is from 2012 to 2016, where they do promise about generating 950,000 jobs here in Tunisia if they were to win the majority of the seats.
Just briefly, though, those who are wanting a secular society, who are concerned that all religions should be treated equally, do you think that they have something to fear?
Well, they sure did. They retweeted online bloggers and all their Facebook pages. They've actually contributed a very negative Facebook page saying dégage, also meaning leave and go away Ennahda, and other political parties have been slamming and negatively publicizing a lot of negative propaganda against the Ennahda group. But when Ennahda in response answered, said that this is quite normal, that during any public sphere that there's always going to be positive and negative press. But they have assured the people that there is nothing to fear with regards to women and males working side by side, and they actually think it's quite comical because they do have female candidates running for the seats in the Constituent Assembly from Ennahda, and one of them is not even veiled. Her name is Mrs. Saad Abdirrahim, and she is unveiled as well. So that is also a liberal woman who actually works quite closely with the Ennahda group.
Thanks so much for your thoughts there, Sarah. That's all we have time for. Thanks very much indeed for joining us live there from the Tunisian
Thank you for
capital.
having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other news now. NATO-led peacekeepers trying to remove roadblocks in northern Kosovo have been prevented by Serbia.